What is theoretically the biggest possible single strike you could deliver in Final Fantasy XIV? Let's explore exactly that. So, the way I am going to do this is to first focus on potencies combined with various damage bonuses, like Maim and Mend, so that nothing is forgotten on the way. Once we have a list of contenders for the biggest strike, we can look into how Direct Hit, Determination and Critical Hit could further increase that, and then how outside raid buffs could further increase that. The reason we do it in this order is because many of these factors can muddy the actual answer if we do it in the wrong order. Now, some things that are really important to keep in mind when making these calculations is that certain roles have some baked-in damage bonuses or damage losses that can be easily forgotten. Among these, we have tanks that straight up just do 20% less damage than other roles, like a hidden trait. All healers and mages do 30% more damage due to the Maim and Mend trait. I did some testing, and it is a little hard to say for sure, but from my estimates, Maim and Mend 2 overrides Maim and Mend 1, meaning just 30% more damage. There's also the part that Blue Mage has 5 different incarnations of this trait, and if they all stacked, Blue Mage would be working with a cumulative 260% more damage from this trait alone, which seems unbelievable, even for Blue Mage. Ranged DPS jobs also have 20% bonus damage from the far more creatively named Increased Action Damage 2. And finally, each individual job of course has their own damage bonuses that we have to keep in mind when finding contenders. A completely different thing that could be worth keeping in mind is that attacks with guaranteed direct hits gain an additional damage bonus from direct hit stats and buffs. And similarly, guaranteed critical hits gain an additional damage bonus from critical hit chance increasing buffs. I say could be worth keeping in mind because, well, to put it nicely, the guaranteed critical direct hitting attacks simply have way too low potencies to stand a chance, even with all the help they can get. This is mainly because we will of course later assume the biggest possible strike will be a critical direct hit anyway, and these kinds of attacks are balanced around greater consistency, which we don't really care about here. With that, let's take it from the bottom, with number 10 capping off at a whopping 920 potency. We have Paladin's Confiteor and Blade of Valor. With a 25% damage bonus from Fight or Flight, we just barely managed to nullify the 20% damage loss from being a tank. So that is actually all, folks. At number 9, with an amazing 1152 final potency, we have Gunbreaker's Double Down, taking the base 1200 potency up to 1440 with the 20% bonus from No Mercy, but then dropping back down to 1152 due to the tank penalty. However, this is still a huge leap ahead of Paladin. At number 8, with a final potency of 1246.3, we have Reaper with Communio. The base 1100 is boosted to 1210 with Death's Design, and then further to 1246.3 with Arcane Circle. A jump further than that, we have Black Mage at number 7, with a final potency of 1407.12 on Xenoglossy. With a base potency of 880, Maim and Mend increases it by 30%, and then enhanced Enochian 3 boosts that by a further 23%, landing at the impressive final 1407.12 potency. At a very close number 6, we have Summoner's Bahamut's Akmorn with 1450.6. With a base potency of 1300, Maim and Mend increases that to 1690, yes, this version increases the pet damage as well, and Searing Light further boosts it to 1740.7. But Bahamut is a pet, and tests suggest that he does around 1/6 less damage than a player, dropping the number down to 1450.6. Notably, depending on which buffs that work and don't work with Bahamut, Black Mage could probably take the lead with raid buffs. Also, of course, Phoenix's Revelation would do the same damage as Akmorn. At number 5, we have Dancer with Technical Finish at 1512. With a base potency of 1200 and the incredibly creatively named Increased Action Damage 2, trait, we are already at 1440, and then we add standard finish, landing at 1512. We can't really include the buff from technical finish itself here, since the buff is applied after the attack itself, as far as I know at least. Yet, even if we did, we would land at 1588, which is still less than the next contender. Still, quite impressive. At number 4, we have Monk with 1597 potency on Phantom Rush. Starting at 1150, Disciplined Fists 15% puts it at 1322.5. Then Riddle of Fire's 15% further pushes it to 1521. And then Brotherhood's 5% brings us to 1597. At this point, it gets incredibly interesting what could possibly be greater than that. And at number 3, we have White Mage coming in from nowhere with Afflatus Misery capping out at 1612. Starting at 1240, all White Mage really needs is Maim and Mend's 30% to push it to 1612. And then at number 2, we have Ninja with Hyosho Ranryu that possibly didn't surprise many, maxing out at 1952 potency. A starting potency of 1300 combined with Kazatsu's bonus 30% places it at 1690, then Trick Attack's 10% puts it at 1859, and then Mog adds an extra 5%, capping out at 1952. Extremely impressive and just barely short of 2000. A very fascinating number given who is actually at number 1. Don't worry, we will get back to this one. But for number 1, we have, probably not surprising anyone at all, Blue Mage. Without even including the stupidly overpowered basic instincts, we still reach an earth-shattering 9377 potency, making use of Final Sting. Just double that number if you want to include basic instincts, but I will calculate this later as well. First, Final Sting has a base potency of 2000. Interesting. And then Tinkle increases that to 2100. Maim and Mend 5, which Blue Mage has for some reason, increases damage by 50%, landing us at 3150. Whistle then increases the damage of your next physical spell by 80%, landing us at 5670. Moonfruit further increases damage by 50% across the board, landing us at 8505. Off-Guard increases damage taken by the target by 5%, pushing to 8930. And Condensed Libra can increase physical damage taken by 5%, landing us at the incredible 9377 potency. With that, we move on to count gear bonuses, and then external rate buffs. In fairness, Blue Mage obviously has a level disadvantage, but that is completely inconsequential because of how insanely busted the job is. For that reason, I will try to include numbers for both our normal combat job finalist and Blue Mage, in case you don't care that much about investigating how much damage Blue Mage can do in particular. For Ninja's stats, let's use the best in slot for Anabazaya's Savage, including a relic weapon. This leads us to have 62.6% critical damage bonus and 10.3% determination damage bonus. Basically, everything else is irrelevant here, as we will assume the attack will be a critical direct hit anyway. Combine these numbers, 1952 times 1.626 times 1.103 times 1.25 for the direct hit, and we get 4376. I just want to take a moment to appreciate that we are still not even halfway to the Blue Mage limit here. Furthermore, this set has 3360 dexterity, so a high quality grade 8 tincture of dexterity grants 262 dexterity, which is around 7.8% more damage as well, leading to 4717 potency. On that note, the Blue Mage recommended best in slot set that minimizes spell speed and thus maximizes a potential single hit has 60.6% critical damage bonus and 11.5% determination. 9377 times 1.606 times 1.115 times 1.25 for the direct hit, and we get 20,989. On top of this, even a high-quality grade 6 Tincture of Intelligence will give a full 10% boost to Intelligence, increasing this further to 23,087. And yet we are still not finished. We could bring some party members and external raid buffs after all. Note that in the case of Ninja, who fully uses the Tincture already, the party bonus will make the impact of the Tincture slightly less, relatively speaking, reducing it to only 7.4%, which also changes the 4,717 potency to 4,701. Now, to make it just remotely realistic, we have to assume there will be 2 tanks and 2 healers, and we obviously want the party bonus. I'm not going to count the party bonus into the potency itself, but we will simply assume we have it later. That means that for Ninja, there has to be a Mage and a ranged physical. And for Blue Mage, there has to be a melee and a ranged physical. We can also, at most, bring 3 other DPS jobs, and of course healers, although 1 will be enough, as Scholar's Change Stratagem only increases the chance of a crit, which we don't really care about, since we already assume it is going to be a crit guaranteed. With that, Ninja maximizes its damage by bringing an Astrologian with Divination and a melee card for 12.36% more damage, a Dancer with Standard and Technical Finish for 10.25%, a Bard specifically using Mage's Ballad and Radiant Finale. You wouldn't normally do that, obviously, but that leads to 7.06%, and a Red Mage with Embolden for 5%. This all stacks together for a 39.3% damage boost, landing Ninja's previous 4,701 at a final value of 6,546 potency, which is over 5 times more than the base potency of Hyosho Ranryu. Outside of a group, a full best-in-slot geared Ninja does around 2,761 damage per 100 potency, without determination or party bonus. This suggests that this 6,546 potency critical direct hit would deal around 189,779 damage in a proper group. For Blue Mage, it is probably not very shocking that we will go with the exact same lineup, although we replace the Red Mage with a Monk. It doesn't change anything though. With the same 39.3% damage boost, Blue Mage's 23,087 potency peaks at a mind-boggling 32,150 potency. A level 80 Blue Mage in full I-530 gear does around 1,650 damage per 100 potency, without determination, approximately. This suggests that this 32,150 potency critical direct hit would deal over 550,000 damage in a proper group. As a level 80, by the way. If we wanted to go even further beyond, and assumed we had only 1 tank and 1 healer, and thus 6 DPS in the group, we can add Red Mage to Blue Mage and Monk to Ninja, as well as Dragoon's Dragonsight to both. This would change the damage bonus to 53.5%, making Ninja's potency 7,217, leading to a Hyosho Ranryu of around 209,231. Blue Mage's potency would change to 35,446, making the final Sting Strike for 614,094. If we assumed this was an alliance raid situation somehow, we could also include a Mug from a Ninja in a different group, leading to an extra 5%, leading to 644,799. We could push both slightly further by getting rid of the tank, making space for 1 more raid buff. For Ninja, take your pick between Summoner and Reaper, it is still 3%. This leads to 213,598 damage, also considering that the Tincture is now worth around 7.5% damage due to lacking a tank for party bonuses, which of course also means minus the party bonus. And for Blue Mage, since we already assumed we have a Ninja in a separate group, the only option left here is also Reaper or Summoner, leading to 657,817. So in summary, the biggest regular job swing, that I can estimate at least, is just about 213,000 damage from a Ninja using a critical directed Hyosho Ranryu, in a group with an Astrologian, a Dancer, a Bard, a Red Mage, a Monk, a Dragoon, and a Reaper or Summoner. Noting that the Bard has to use a suboptimal song order using Mage's Ballad during the burst to maximize the damage of the Ninja. don't actually do this in a real fight. A blue mage can, however, push it even further beyond in an alliance raid by having an astrologian, a dancer, a bard, a red mage, a monk, a dragoon, and a reaper or summoner in their party, as well as receiving the bonus from Mug from a different alliance, pushing it all the way to 658,000 damage. If you were to go solo and use basic instincts, meaning no raid buffs and no party bonus, you would actually be able to peak at 761,886, approximately. Although, given that you die immediately after, and while soloing as blue mage is potent, it isn't super effective for truly hard encounters, I think this is less significant. A fun fact is that Breath of Magic is extremely close to Final Sting, in that replacing Whistle and Tingle with Bristle and having a second blue mage in a different alliance to apply Peculiar Light, making up the loss of Condensed Libra, Final Sting is only a measly 5% damage ahead of Breath of Magic. But Breath of Magic actually also receives a benefit from spell speed, so if you could collect over 5% dot damage from spell speed, then Breath of Magic could theoretically have a higher maximum damage than Final Sting. It would, of course, require you to crit and direct hit every single tick, though. So with all that said, are you surprised to find Ninja and Blue Mage at the top? Do you feel like I forgot something? Did you get a completely different result, or do you think I got it mostly right? Whatever it is, I would love to hear about it in the comments. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support me and my channel more directly, you can become a member like these wonderful people here. You can also alternatively support me through Ko-Fi, link in the description. You can also support the channel by letting the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. Fun fact, obviously there was no reason to make this entire discussion in the first place, because the biggest single attack you could ever do is Mortal Flame, which does damage over time, forever, which means it has a theoretically infinite damage limit. You just have to live long enough to see it. Ignoring the potential damage bonuses from spell speed, it would take 6 critical direct hit ticks for Mortal Flame to catch up to Final Sting with everything optimal for it. Add spell speed and it would take less. 60 ticks would take 3 minutes.